Welcome. So today, Jan and I are going to be talking about the power of collaboration, which we thought was a very good topic to talk about now with this change that we're navigating, and having kind of a partnership or support or filling the niches in your business or what your passion is a great asset to have. So one of the quotes that Charles Darwin was talking about, he said, in the long history of humankind and animal kind, those who learned how to collaborate and improvise most effectively have prevailed. So there's definitely a certain strength with collaboration, and I definitely think that I've realized that in partnering with different people throughout the years, and then the current partnership that I have and collaboration I've had with different people is a lot different, which is pretty cool. So intention. I think one of the things, before we go into why collaboration is really good and how to collaborate, I think one of the things that I have learned, and we have been talking about, Jana and Charles and I have been talking about, is really being clear with our vision, our idea, our purpose, and then bringing in, it's almost like you magnetize the people that you need, whose genius that fulfill the role that you want. So I think that has been the main thing that has changed with me in the last year, because I know with partnerships and different collaborations, people are like, hey, you're really good at this. Why don't you come and do this? And it hasn't really been my focus or passion, but because I haven't known exactly what direction I'm going into, I've kind of decided to go into those partnerships. And it's been very interesting. And they might last for a little while or a long while, but they've never quite fit like the collaboration, this positive collaboration that I've been experiencing recently. So we thought this is a great time to talk about really when you define your purpose and you define your passion, how people and their geniuses come along with that. Is there anything you want to add about that, Jana or Charles?
No, I think you said it really well. I mean, intention is important in the process of heading into the direction where we want to go. And the more clear that you become, the more you tune into your inner genius and your passion. I think you're absolutely right. I think that people naturally gravitate towards you. But I guess the important part is like, why are we talking about this, and why do we feel that collaboration is important? And I think the truth is that in this relationship that we are all in right now, in this partnership, we realize that we've actually really benefited from this experience. And the things that we've learned along the way so far have been so potent and so powerful that I just personally want to share. Like I personally believe that people who are, maybe striving to be an independent person or an independent business owner, there's a lot of things that we miss by not working with others. And so I guess we'll talk about that today.
I think also that you never do anything on your own, ever. I mean, you might think you do, but you don't. Even if you're a lonely artist in some garret somewhere in Paris, sort of attic, you still need an agent, you still need an exhibition, you still need people. And I think really all business, not necessarily business, but everything we do is about sort of interacting with people. And finding the right people is not easy, I think. And good collaborations are incredibly empowering, I think, as well. And finding the right sort of balance. The other thing that always has I've carried with me on all my business life is that it's not about agreeing with people at all. In fact, it's quite the opposite. You want independent thinkers in a good collaboration, I think, because that spurs you on. Maybe even makes you argue as well, but that's worthwhile, I think.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
I think that's cool, like what you said, Charles, because it does also expand your comfort zone a little bit and gets you into that learning zone, and also allows you to really defend what you believe and
Yeah.
understand where that's coming from as well, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So I think that's a very important point.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
there's a couple reasons that Jana and I were discussing on why to collaborate. And one of the main reasons is it really helps us solve problems. And this is kind of going back on what you were saying, you know, eventually we all run out of ideas, and to have somebody to bounce things off of or talk about different ways to look at things. And when we feel stuck, it's somebody to bring you out of that, you know, that change of perspective and looking at things a little bit differently, coming at it from a different angle. And, you know, Charles, you're always talking about like, there is no box. And when you have a couple people in the room, it's like you can talk about that. Otherwise, you might be dealing with just obviously just your one idea or opinion and that kind of stuff. So this can really help you understand something that you were not able to see otherwise.
Yeah, I also think that collaboration and creative thinking is all about sort of questions, really. It's about asking questions. It's not about finding answers. It's just keeping on asking the question all the time. And if you think you've got the answer, then that's pretty good indication that you haven't, because it doesn't work like that. Well, it doesn't, does it? I mean, even, as I say, even if you're just an artist working on your own, it's all about questioning what you do, because otherwise you don't grow.
Yeah.
So, and that's where I think collaborations are incredibly valuable, because the other members of that collaborative team should bring their own personalities, their own qualities to it, and that balances or antagonizes sometimes what you want to achieve. One of the big things that I've always missed, that I enjoyed more with film than I did with designing hotels, was in film, everybody pulls in the same direction. We all know what the goal is. It's to make a great film. The problem with the big construction projects and hotels is that you tend to get people with their own self-interests, and that's not quite the right kind of collaboration. So there is good collaboration and bad collaboration, I think.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. Yes. That
is interesting. And that kind of goes along with also, so just off of that idea, is collaboration does, a positive collaboration does bring people closer together towards creating a common goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as you get the goal clear.
Yeah.
And
making that intention clear in the beginning.
Yeah, and the clearer you are, the more you can bring in people that align with that vision, that aren't like that, like you said, that self-interest. So that common goal or that common purpose, and that's what I think is really cool about our collaboration. Like, we're all interested in, you know, making a social impact and environmental impact, and then also like changing the way people think. Like, you know, really having that inspiring creativity from that inner well-being. So I think like having that common vision and then bringing, kind of magnetizing, like you said, Jana, magnetizing people towards that common goal, and then developing that as a team. So I think that's really, really cool. And that's one of the things that I've learned, is that because I'm clear, then everybody else is clear. And everybody else, I think the other thing is that you really, and this is what we did with our kind of call the other day about the new business, is we really define our roles really well. It's like, exactly where do we fit in?
We've yet to prove it.
Yes.
Don't take anything for granted.
We're on the start of it.
Yeah. No, but that's great. But I do think that that it is about finding a common goal as well, and that you have to agree on that common goal. But it's definitely not about agreeing. And the other thing really about collaborations is that's pretty much, I think, how everything progresses and anything progresses, is that somebody has an idea, be it stupid or wonderful, and then other people have to buy into it, because if they can't prove it or they don't buy into it, it doesn't happen. It doesn't fly. So
I agree.
I'm a really big fan of diversity as well, in terms of completely different backgrounds, different thinking. You know, it's when you get a whole lot of people who all think the same or have got the same attitude in a room together, you've got groupthink and you've got nothing. You
Yeah.
might just have done it on your own.
Yeah.
What makes
Yeah,
it interesting
it's true.
is a certain amount of tension, a certain amount of stress, which I think there has to be.
Yeah.
And I
Mhm.
don't know about what you think, Jana, because you work, I assume, mostly quietly on your own, but all your influences are from outside.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean it's you know, it's definitely something that I've had to it's a learned trait, I feel like, to collaborate because
Mm.
I think growing up I was more so concerned of like being this independent person or not being dependent, like even, you know, on my parents or whatever it is, just like wanting to be able to pay for my own things or to, you know, whatever idea that I had, it was like mine. I don't know what high horse I was on, but I feel like when I was in that state, I did hurt my relationships a lot because there was this, and I think we'll talk about this a little bit later, but it was the idea that I didn't necessarily trust myself or trust others around me enough to be able to
Mm.
work with them. Like I felt like they wouldn't do a good enough job of how I wanted things to be done. And that is something that has taken time for me to develop, to be able to trust people. And I think that started to happen when I became more clear with what I actually wanted. And the more clear with that I became, I realized I can't do this by myself. Because like you said, Charles, it doesn't matter if it's in business or personal relationships, we're codependent people, humans, animals, however you want to put it, but we do depend on each other. And I think the more that I became open to it and more acceptive of it, I think that's when the helping hands really did come in, and a lot of my ideas that I had were able to manifest.
But I think there's also something about a really important factor within it is generosity, is that you have to be able to share,
Yeah.
and you have to be able to share ideas or materials or knowledge or whatever it is. And I think that sort of generosity is incredibly important in collaborations, because if
Yeah.
someone holds back, then obviously it's not a full collaboration. And I think that's
Yeah.
where a lot of partnerships break down, is that somebody holds back something, somebody's giving something, and so it's all going in one direction. It's not sort of working. So it
Right.
is, I think, also about generosity as well, and
Yeah.
willing to, and being or wanting to share. I mean, I guess, again, Jana, it's if you paint a painting or you do a drawing or whatever it is, it's for somebody else to see as well. I mean, I know it's part of your own personal development, because we all go through that anyway, but it is for other people to see. So that is a part of the sort of the collaboration or the arrangement that you have with an unknown public who will see your stuff and will give you the feedback that you're sharing with them. So
Yeah.
it's a really important part
Yeah.
as well.
It does bring people closer together. And
Yeah.
which
And I
is
think,
actually our next point.
yeah, well, I was gonna say we learned, you know, just like you guys said, one of our points, like the third point that we wanted to talk about is we learn a lot from each other, but also that comes from generosity and trust, both of those things. So obviously being able to trust people and knowing yourself, being able to trust yourself that any idea is an idea, it's a good idea or a bad idea, it doesn't matter, get it out there. I think that's the one thing that also inspires creativity. And that's what, you know, Charles, you and I talk about a lot, is like, you know, we need all the ideas, and then they can all kind of sift out. But having that trust and that receiving and giving attitude is a strong part of, obviously, strong collaborations and positive collaborations. And like you said, it doesn't have to do with like that there might be conflict or there might be a difference in opinion. That's perfect. That's exactly stepping outside the comfort zone. That's getting into growth. That's accepting somebody for who they are. That's all of that kind of that synergy that you want to create when you're working
Yeah.
towards a common goal.
But I think that's also where the vulnerability comes in,
It is.
because yes, you are generous. Yes, you trust people. Not everyone always looks after that trust. And
Yeah,
so
true.
that's why I think that most sort of creative thinkers tend to be fairly vulnerable as well.
Yeah.
And as a result, quite sensitive sometimes, because, you know, you're giving something that you believe in personally. And then unfortunately, the public doesn't always agree with you, and they think, you know, they may well knock you down.
Yeah, it's true. There's a large degree of vulnerability, especially when you're expressing your true self on what you are sharing and believing. So there does have to be, I think, obviously with collaborations, like you're not going to attract everybody, but hopefully you're attracting the right people because you are clear and because you have trust in your vision.
I wish I knew what the true self was. I've been looking and I can't
No one
find it. It's in there somewhere, but I don't know where it is. Either that or it keeps changing. I don't know.
It keeps evolving.
It does change. You grow with it.
Yeah, exactly.
I always remember that song in the chorus line where she sings that she delved right down into her soul and she found nothing. And I'm afraid that. But you know, but I think it's also because it's that I personally I don't think there is that one sort of true self, that it just changes and morphs, and that, coming back to collaboration, is the wonderful thing about collaborations is different people sort of shove you in different directions, and you get morphed and moved and influenced. And I mean, you know, if you travel somewhere, I mean, I know, Jana, you've been to India and to many other wonderful exotic places, but that's all sort of the stuff that comes in that then comes out in some other form. And that's also a collaboration, I think. So even when we had a design company, a full design company with sort of 17 or 18 designers, I used to really sort of get down on everybody if they didn't go out to exhibitions, good ones, bad ones, see TV, see bad films, see good films, go to the theatre, go, you know, really become a sponge, take it all in, because you never know when it's going to come out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I think that's the same with people, is that you need to be sort of receptive as well as generous too.
Yeah, and that's you know, I think that has a lot to do with communication, you know, and that's something that I think collaboration really does bring out in people, is actually it promotes healthy communication. You know, I'm personally a big believer that, you know, anything that you practice, you become better at it. And, you know, when you collaborate, you're constantly practicing communication. You're practicing, you know, organizing the vision, planning the vision, just engaging with each other, navigating, negotiating, all these things, you know, that you do, you're practicing a way of communicating with somebody else. And so in this like constant practice phase that you, I think, eventually get into as you start to collaborate with others, is that is your ability to be more, I think, clear and to be more productive and essentially more successful in the project.
But that's also why I think that there needs to be some tension, there needs to be some conflict within a group, because otherwise you don't change, you don't grow.
Yeah.
And you know, if somebody's always telling you you're wonderful, you're wonderful, you're wonderful, then eventually you believe you're wonderful, but you're not. So you need to have somebody to tell you a bit of sort of true life tales sometimes, I think.
Well. You need people to push you outside of your comfort zone. I mean, that's collaboration. Otherwise you could stay there and just be in your little space, but that's where growth comes from. And that's what we talk with anything, with exercise, you know.
Well, that was the whole thing with flow, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The whole thing with flow is that you need the skill, but you also need the creative tension as well. It needs to be somewhere near the point at which it's going out of your comfort zone. So you need to get right to the edge of skill, right to the edge of comfort, and then suddenly it sort of all clicks into place.
Yeah.
So, I think
communication is important. And, you know, I think that there are, though, healthy, you know, ways of communicating. You know, you mentioned the whole idea of you might be in an argumentative state, or, you know, kind of having polarities in the group, and that's healthy. But I think that's important to realize that it is healthy, because a lot of people don't think that it's healthy. They're like, we're arguing, this is a mess. In the same way that, you know, you could be with your loving partner. Just because you have arguments doesn't mean that it's not a successful relationship. It's the process of overcoming. And I think in that debate of state maybe is practicing how to, you know, hold space for the other person that's speaking, like listening to them, you know, all the way through without interjecting, like taking time to actually consider, you know, what it is that they're saying. I think with the yoga background that I have, you know, having the beginner state, or I think in meditation we talk about this too, but it's having a beginner's mind. You know, we have so many preconceived notions and so many past of patterns of our own, you know, that we get hung up on, and sometimes that forces us to be kind of more reactive than really more reflective. And so I think in those times when you have a debate state, it's good to debate. I am a firm believer that it's a healthy thing, but there's also a good way to do things and a bad way to do things. And
Well,
I think,
sorry, no, finish.
No, I was just going to say that, you know, to be, to really allow the other people to speak when you are, you know, tossing around ideas, like letting them finish all the way through, because I think it's also a way of like respecting your team member as well, as like, hey, I respect you, I want to hear your idea, I want to hear what you're saying, like actually show interest instead of like, this is my way and that's the only way that we're going to do it, you know. But go ahead, Charles.
No, also that there with any sort of collaboration or teamwork, there needs to be some ground rules, I think. And one of the ground rules paramount, well, there are two, I think, that are paramount above all others. One is not being judgmental. You have to suspend judgment. And the other is that it has to be constructive criticism. I mean, if it becomes sort of personal or destructive, then that can destroy a group very quickly. And any sort of side sort of collaborations or things don't necessarily help unless they're well organized and well planned. But I do think that that one of the main ground rules has to be that there has to be constructive criticism. It doesn't matter if it's criticism then, so long as it's constructive. But if it's destructive, then you can easily destroy a team. And I think, you know, collaborations can be quite fragile and they can be incredibly strong as well.
Yeah. The thing with criticism, you know, and especially I'll say this as an artist, is that for me, it took a long time for me to trust the people that I was receiving critique from, you know, because I was vulnerable. I was sensitive to what the feedback that I was receiving. And so I think that's also a big portion of collaborating with others, is that trust building in your group or with just one other person, to be able to hear their critiques, hear their side and, you know, their ideas, and to be receptive and to give good feedback in the process, so you both can move forward, or as the group can move forward. But I think this does take a little bit of, you know, building trust. And I know many companies do it. You know, there's plenty of companies out there that have these kind of group building skills or activities that they do to increase the way that they trust their partners, you know. Because what happens when we're more trustworthy of somebody else, you know, we're willing to be more open, we're willing to be more ourselves. And when we're in that relaxed state, I think that's when the ideas really flow. And that's what we're trying to work towards, is this idea of flow.
I mean, I do understand also that, and I'm just as guilty, if not more guilty than anybody, of sometimes not taking criticism very well. And that's partly because I believe in the idea that I have, and I believe very fervently and passionately, and I'm not willing to let go. But it does take the right kind of argument to swing me round, and that has to be very constructive, because then I have to sort of, then it becomes a thing of intellectually understanding it, rather than, and actually sort of going a bit beyond intellectual, to say, I actually believe that this is a valid criticism. So, but it's definitely about being open, and definitely about being constructive, I think, in all collaborations. But it doesn't have to always be that way, does it? I mean, You know,
No.
bankers work with who knows who. I mean, I don't know who bankers work with except themselves, but they do collaborate with people, with construction companies and all the rest. They don't necessarily need to get on, but they need to set their ground rules, I think, quite clearly at the beginnings. You know, you're doing this, I'm doing this, I'll bring this to the party, you bring that to the party, and then they can find a common goal, I think.
Yeah, which I mean, and the common goal I really do think is like, you know, why are we doing in the first place is like to be more efficient, to be more productive, to be stronger, to provide, you know, better service or better information, whatever it is. It's all about, you know, increasing our efficiency, which is, you know, part of collaborating. That's why you want to collaborate is, you know, if I had 100 tasks that I'm responsible for, it'll take me a lot longer and it's not very efficient for me, you know, to do that.
I also think that that business and entrepreneurship going forward is going to be all about collaboration, but across continents, across countries, across everything. It's interesting because science has always done that, but reluctantly in a way. I mean, you have to publish a paper, you then have to submit it to peer review. Can you imagine how traumatic that must be? You know, here you are, you've come up with the theory of relativity, and suddenly someone's criticizing it and taking it to pieces. How dare they?
Yeah.
So, but then that means that if it's done well, which normally in science it is that you then end up with something that can be proven, that has been tested, that, you know, has been peer reviewed. And that I think is incredibly important as well. So sometimes you need distance, you need to work on your own, and then you need to come together and bring things to the party.
Yeah.
So I think the other thing that you were just talking about too, Charles, is like, and the reason Jana and I really wanted to discuss the power of collaboration is because that is the future of what we're doing, and specifically kind of worldwide and also in our business. But it's like the power of collaboration allows us to live in our role and live in our genius, but do something bigger with some more people to establish kind of that bigger vision and that bigger idea. So no longer are we like, okay, or I guess we'll just specifically talk for, you know, are we okay with living a little bit smaller, with just going forward with our own idea and our own vision? It's like, oh, we have this bigger idea. Let's get some other people on board who have a different genius, who can step into these roles. And then we can establish something that's a little bit of a bigger vision, a little bit of bigger impact. And I do think that's where we're moving, especially with entrepreneurship and creativity and just the world these days. It's like there's this change, I feel, even in the wellness field, is that there's less competing and more collaborations.
I think so. I mean, I think also the days of the great polymaths like Da Vinci or Newton or Darwin or whoever, I think unfortunately there's just too much out there now to be able to hold that level of knowledge and information. I mean, there are some, I mean, Malcolm Gladwell, for instance, people who are very, very broad in their understanding and knowledge. But I think nowadays, I mean, if you look even about the development of vaccines at the moment, that's collaborating worldwide. I mean, that is amazing that, you know, the statistics, the data is being sort of thrown around the world every second of the day. Well, I have a friend who works with the World Health Organization, and he's saying that, you know, they're looking at statistics every day from all over the world, from all the different countries, from different scientists, from immunologists, from all sorts. And that's massive collaboration.
Huge collaboration.
And also we now have, of course, big data, which I think is still in its infancy, but my word, some companies are working it out, and that's a different kind of collaboration. That's not even sort of consensual collaboration. So Amazon have got more on you than you know about yourself, and so have Facebook for that. So,
it is
that's a very, very different type of collaboration.
And I do think that we're going on like this in the current situation that we're in with the virus and also climate change and the state of the environment. It's like we have global, global impacts going on right now that we have to globally, tackle together. And it's not that one person can do it. And I think this is a really exciting time to be in. And that's exactly why we need to start coming up with different ideas and listening to different people, and the trust that we're all working towards this common goal. And this is a huge time to start coming up with collaborative efforts.
Which is why I am amazed that my country chose Brexit.
I know.
What were they thinking?
Oh, that is so funny.
Non-collaboration. That's a backward step, surely.
It is.
It doesn't make sense to me. Anyway.
That is baffling.
Well, the other thing that besides of why we should collaborate, or why we believe there's power to collaboration, one of the things that Christy and I also wanted to talk about was how to collaborate, or how to choose who you collaborate. Obviously, there's a lot of instances that, like, you're not the one choosing who you collaborate with. If you're working for a different company, for instance, or working for somebody else, but specifically in the sense that if you are starting out and you have an idea, how to choose the people that you collaborate with. And we wrote down a couple things that we discussed where we had a mutual agreement to on, especially how our collaboration came to be. And again, I think some of this, we consciously chose to be intentional with what we want and everything like that. And some of it, I do believe, also happens by chance, serendipity moments, such as the hotel.
Oh yeah, that's weird.
Yeah.
But I think also that I think you're absolutely right, because part of it is it's a sort of emergent property. Yes, you can plan for all these collaborations and everybody's got different skills and it all comes together, but actually something else happens when big groups get together, or even small groups. A new sort of thing that generates, which is the personality of the collaboration as well, which is also fascinating. So that's a completely emergent property that doesn't exist in the individuals, and it's a sort of collective thing that you can't even calculate. If you put all the bits together, you don't necessarily get the formula that says, oh, this is going to happen. Certain things only because there is some collaboration, I think.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Definitely.
So some of the things that some of the stuff we already discussed, but trust is one of them. If you are choosing people to collaborate with, obviously you want to trust them. And I think most importantly, also to trusting your partners, trusting yourself, trusting that you have the ability, that you have the strength, that you have the ideas to move forward to it. And the same thing with the people that you're working with. One of the things that I personally wrote down was somebody that inspires you. I think it's beneficial to have, one or two or three people that you, in a sense, look up to. Because if they're constantly around you and you guys are building this idea together, I personally, Charles, you inspire me. Christina, you inspire me. Other people that we're with, independently, we're all doing really cool things that I feel are the reason why the bigger idea is actually even more exciting, is because of the tools and our personal experiences that we're bringing together. And then
I absolutely agree with that. And yes, I think trust is a huge part of it. And because again, it's to do with vulnerability, I think, and being generous as well. But and I mean, it doesn't have to be, complete and utter trust. It has to be trust in what you're doing, trust in where you're going. So I don't have to trust you guys to look after my children. That I don't need to do. I can do that. That's all right. Well, I can in collaboration with someone else.
Right.
But what I can do is trust you with what we're trying to create and where we're going and what it's going to be and what it might be, and also in the fact that there is a future in it, because trust is a future word. You can't sort of, well, you might have trusted somebody in the past, but but to some extent, it's a word that looks forward
Yeah.
to what people are going to deliver, and that they won't hurt you or they won't upset you in some way.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
and that's really important, because it is all about looking forward, not backwards, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
Although there's lots of stuff in the past that we can still sort of work with and use,
Right.
but it is all how we're going to use this to create a different future.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that, I think, is really what we're all aiming at, is to create and to share something in the future.
Yeah. Having that similar goal and vision, you know, it's definitely part of it. And
Yeah,
actually,
I'm not sure that we necessarily have all the same vision yet,
Mhm.
but I think we can trust each other to say that we're going to bring this into some sort of collective vision of some kind. Because,
Right.
and as I say, I think the exciting thing is that we're all coming at it from a slightly different angle, which I think is worthwhile.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
fascinating. And I do think like that's the whole point. And this is what kind of going back to that whole, you know, we're tackling kind of global issues just all together. And then having all of our different backgrounds that we have, in addition to our different environments, and in addition to our different, you know, lifestyles. I think it's fascinating, and I am excited to see what we come up with. But we all have kind of, you know, as Jana was talking about who you collaborate with, it's like we all have different skills and traits, which are all needed. And then we all, the other thing is, you know, Jana and I were also talking about, it's like we all are the ideas that we have about personal health and wellness, I think, are really important too. We all, in our group, we all have had and have a kind of a sporty, you know, lifestyle, or we've been involved in that kind of scene, and we are interested in that physical and mental, keeping up the physical and mental health. What I think is extremely important to have, in addition to the geniuses that we currently, you know, are exploring. So
I think it's also very, very, I mean, this is one of my big hobby horses at the moment, is that it's very important to have long-term, I mean, we spoke about this, I think, last week, actually, or the beginning of the week, multi-generational views.
Yeah.
You've got to be way, way, way ahead, much, much more than the next 20 minutes or the next hour or the next week. It's got to be a few generations ahead, because that will inform the decisions that you make for the next 20 minutes or the next hour or the next day. That, I think, is really important. And to be honest, I don't want to get political, because I'm not allowed to, also old. But I think that's part of the, well, one of the problems with politics at the moment is that it tends to look at short-term sound bites, something that will solve basically a symptom right now, but doesn't actually address the huge, huge, huge problems ahead with climate change, with all sorts of other things, where you do need generations, or to be looking at, you know, what is this going to do for 3 generations beyond? And that's, I mean, if this is in the context of collaboration, then that is a huge issue of, you know, how do we collaborate with future generations? And in effect, that's the reason to share, is that you want people to be happier, to be healthier, to be more content with themselves, better in their well-being. And to do that, I think you need a very long-term vision that inspires people to say, okay, so we're not just going to look for short-term gain. We're going to see whether we can make this work for, you know, 60 years or 80 years in the future.
Yeah.
That's a big thing to
You're
grab.
absolutely right, Charles. I think that's where, you know, maybe perhaps everyone's focus should be when it comes to collaborating with other people right now, is a long-term vision. What are we actually working on, and what are we putting out there for those who follow after us? You know, what is the message, and what do we leave them with?
Yeah, exactly. And even if we don't have personal power or the skills to actually do anything ourselves, the little tiny, I mean, Christina and I have spoken so many times about little steps.
Yes.
Eventually add up to very big steps.
Yeah.
So you just need to make lots and lots of little steps. And But I do, and I mean, tonight is a testament to it. Here we are, 3 continents speaking at the same time
Yeah.
with technology, which is amazing. I mean, that is truly amazing.
Yeah.
So very good.
Great.
Yes.
Well, thanks, you guys. I think that was a very in-depth discussion about collaboration, and especially with our experiences. And that's, you know, why we wanted to bring this up, the power of collaboration, what we can do for future generations by working together and then coming together on like global efforts. I know it sounds like a big thing, but like you said, Charles, let's break it down into small things, small habits that you can do daily, personally, in order to
If everybody did the right thing just a little bit every single day, can you imagine what a wonderful place it would be?
Exactly. I feel like I might break out a song now.
Right.
Oh my God.
We could turn these into a musical. That would be great.
Yeah.
You haven't heard me sing. It wouldn't. It would.
Yeah. But yeah, I just wanted to wrap up, and we probably will be taking a little bit of a break while we, all of us, start to establish our new direction and our vision together. And then we'll be coming back for more webinars and more podcasts in the future, discussing all sorts of interesting things on what we find out. So yeah. So thanks, you guys.
Okay.
And we
Thank
will
you.
see you next time.